Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about solving multi-step equations. Our content objective is students will be able to solve multi-step equations by combining like terms and using the distributive property, and also to check their solutions. Language objective is students will be able to state the mathematical properties used when solving equations. Why am I learning this? Well, it's important for real-world problems like problems in science, like average speed. So solving equations involving the distributive property, that's what we're going to start with first. So first, it's important to remember what number are we distributing. So in this case, we are distributing a 6. And what will we be distributing it to? Well, we're going to distribute to a y and a minus 2. If you're wondering why that's a negative 2 or minus 2, you can think of it as adding the opposite. So if that helps you, definitely do that. So here, we're going to go ahead and distribute and say 6 times y is 6y. And then 6 times a negative 2 is a negative 12. So here you can put plus negative 12 equals 60. Now, what we typically do first is undo addition or subtraction, also known as getting rid of the constant. So in order to get rid of this negative 12, I'm going to go ahead and add 12 to both sides to get rid of the constant. That's going to leave me with 6y equals 72. Now, once we've gotten rid of the constant, the next thing would be to get rid of the coefficient. Basically, that's when we're going to be undoing multiplication or division. So this means 6 times y. So to isolate y, I want to make a 1. So the only way to do that is to divide by 6, because 6 divided by 6 is 1. 1 times y is just y. That's exactly what I needed. I'm going to divide both sides by 6, which is going to leave me with y equals 12. Now, it's important to also be checking our work, because inevitably we're trying to find a value for the variable that creates a true statement. So with that said, we would plug this value back into y to make sure all of this does equal 60. If it does, then I know I have the correct answer. However, if it does not equal 60, then I know I did something wrong and my value for the variable is incorrect. So I won't be checking the work for this one, but I will be checking the work for the following examples. Okay, so let's just go ahead and move on. So here it is, number 1. We have 16 equals 4 times the quantity m minus 4. So first things first is let's decide what are we distributing. We're distributing a 4. What are we distributing it to? Well, first we're going to distribute it to an m, which is going to be 4m, and then we're going to distribute to a negative 4. So 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. So I'm going to go ahead and put equals 16. So now, at this point, after distributing, we typically will get rid of the constant by undoing addition or subtraction. So I'm going to go ahead and undo subtraction here by adding 16 to both sides. By adding to 16 to both sides, that's going to create a 0, which is exactly what I need. Why? Because 4m minus 0 is still just 4m. So we're getting closer to isolating the variable. Now here, 16 plus 16 is 32. So we've distributed, we've got rid of the constant. The next thing is going to be to get rid of the coefficient. And typically, we're going to get rid of the coefficient by undoing the multiplication or division. In this case, it is 4 times m, so I'm going to undo the multiplication by dividing both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 becomes 1. That's exactly what I need, because what's 1 times m? Just m. I've successfully isolated my variable. Now 32 divided by 4 is 8, so m equals 8. Or so I'm claiming it to be 8. Why am I saying that? Well, because I'm not 100% sure that this is correct until I've checked my work. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and copy the equation exactly the way that it is, except whenever we see our variable, we're going to put a set of parentheses. So here we're going to put 16 equals 4 parentheses, and then here we have parentheses. So I'm going to go ahead and put another set of parentheses like so, and then put minus 4, and another set of parentheses. So now I'm going to go ahead and plug in my value of 8 into the parentheses here. which is going to leave me with 16 equals 4 times the quantity. I'm going to go ahead and simplify what's inside the parentheses because that's following the order of operations. 8 minus 4 is 4, so we're going to be left with 16 equals 4 times 4, which is 16. So I'm very confident that my answer, aka my solution for M, is indeed 8. Okay, so number 2, we're going to kick it up a notch. So in the first one, we had integers, but now we have decimals. So is there anything really different with this particular problem? The answer is no. Everything is the same except instead of distributing a whole number now, we're going to be distributing a decimal. So I'm going to go about the same steps. First, I want to understand that I am distributing a negative 1.8. First, I'm going to distribute it to an f, so negative 1.8 times f is negative 1.8f. Then I'm going to distribute it to a negative 1.2. So negative 1.8 times a negative 1.2, that's going to be positive, so I'm going to put plus. Now, I do need to do some side work, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little section here. So I'm going to do 1.8 times 1.2. This is 16, carry the 1, that's 2 plus 1 is 3. 0, this is 8, this is 1, and now we're just going to add. We're going to move our decimal 1, 2 places, so 1, 2, that's going to leave me with plus 2 and 1600ths equals 5 and 4/10. Now, just like before, we're going to get rid of our constant by undoing addition or subtraction. So we're going to subtract 2 and 1600ths from both sides, which is going to leave me with negative 1 and 8/10 f equals, between these two numbers, there's definitely more positives. How many more positives? There are 5.4 positives and 2 and 1600ths negatives. Notice it's important that we line up our decimals, so I did that. 10 minus 6 is 4, 3 minus 1 is 2, and 5 minus 2 is 3. So we're left with 3 and 2400ths. Now, last but not least, we're going to get rid of our coefficient, and we typically do that by undoing multiplication or division. Since this is negative 1.8 times f, I'm going to go ahead and undo it by dividing both sides by negative 1.8. So the negatives cancel, so the number cancels, leaving me with f equals, and here a positive divided by negative. Notice the signs can cancel out, so it's going to remain negative. Now I'm going to divide. Let me just make some more room here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do 3 and 2400ths divided by 1 and 8/10. I'm going to first move my decimal 1 place over. I'm going to say 18 goes into 32. Let's see. 2 would be too much, so I'm going to go ahead and say once. So we're going to borrow. This is going to become 12, 4, bring down the 1, so 144. I'm going to say 18 is going to go into 144. Well, first let me estimate. 18 is pretty close to 20. So 20 is going to go into 144 maybe about 7 times. So let's try 18 times 7, which is not enough. So let's try one more. 8, 64. Then it does work out nicely. So my answer is going to be a negative 1 and 8/10. But can I confidently claim that this is my answer? Not quite until I've checked my work. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and rewrite the entire equation. But instead of an f, we're going to go ahead and plug in our answer. So here we have negative 1.8 parentheses, but then we see an f, so we're going to put another set of parentheses. Minus 1.2 parentheses equals 5.4. So we're going to go ahead and plug in our answer of negative 1.8. Now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to simplify what's inside the parentheses first according to order of operation. So I'm going to go ahead and keep my negative 1.8 on the outside, and I'm going to go ahead and simplify the inside. Since we are going to add the opposite, I would have to combine these to see how many negatives I have altogether, which would leave me with negative 3 equals 5 and 4/10. Now, a negative times a negative is a positive. I'm just going to multiply 1.8 times 3. It's 24, carry the 2, that's 3 plus 2 is 5. Move the decimal 1 spot. I do end up with 5 4/10 equals 5 4/10. So I can confidently say the solution to my equation is f equals -1 8/10. Okay, so now number 3 is different. It's not integers, it's not decimals, but it is fractions. At this point, why don't you go ahead and pause the video and try number 3 by yourself. Okay, so let's go ahead and check and see how well we did. I'm going to go ahead and put a little area for me right here for side work real quick. We are going to be distributing a 3 first to the letter U. So 3 times U is just 3U. Now we're going to distribute 3 to a -5/4. A positive times negative is a negative, which if it helps you, you can just go ahead and put it over 1. I can't cross reduce between 1 and 5, nor can I with 3 and 4, which is just going to leave me with 15/4. Okay, now, just like before, after we've distributed, we're going to go ahead and get rid of the constant by undoing addition or subtraction. So I'm going to go ahead and do that by adding 15/4 to both sides. These are additive inverses, creating 0, which is exactly what I need, because now I'm just left with 3U, which gets me closer to isolating U. I'm going to go ahead and also add 15/4 to this side. So let's go ahead and work it out. Notice -6 remains first. So I'm going to write that first, -6 over 1 plus 15/4. 4 is my lowest common denominator. We're going to go ahead and multiply this by 4 to make sure the denominators are the same. This is going to remain the same, which is going to leave us with -9/4. So we went ahead and got rid of our constant. The next step is to get rid of our coefficient by undoing multiplication or division. Since this is 3 times U, we're going to do the inverse, which is to divide by 3. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by 3 here, making some more room here for the actual division. So notice here, 3 divided by 3 is 1, which is exactly what I need, because what's 1 times U? Just U, so I've successfully isolated that. Now real quick, a negative divided by positive is a negative, so I'm going to write that right away before I lose that. And I'm going to work it out. Notice I'm going to read it in order. First comes the -9/4, and then I'm dividing it by 3. So we're going to put 3 over 1. So now it's going to be rewritten as 9/4 times the reciprocal of that, which is 1/3. I can cross reduce, leaving me with 3/4. And I already have my sign written there. But before I claim that this is my actual solution, it's always a good idea to check our work. So let's go ahead and do that first. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the entire thing. -6 equals 3 parentheses, but instead of a U, I'm going to put an open set of parentheses. And I'm going to go put -5/4 and then close the parentheses. Now what goes in this open parentheses? Well, of course, my solution. So we're going to go ahead and plug in our -3/4. So that's going to leave us with -6 equals 3. We're going to simplify what's inside the parentheses. We're going to go ahead and add the opposite. Notice here we have -8/4, just so that you can see. -8/4 does reduce to -2. So we're going to be left with -6 equals 3 times -2 is also -6. So I can confidently say that the solution to this equation is indeed U equals -3/4. Okay, last but not least, go ahead and pause the video and try number 4 by yourself. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and try number 4. Number 4 is slightly different. Why? Because for number 4, we're distributing a fraction, but guess what? The steps are going to be exactly the same as before. We're going to go ahead and take a -4/5 and first distribute it to an x, which is going to leave us with -4/5 x. And then we're going to distribute the -4/5 to a +3. Real quick, let me just do some side work. First of all, I'm going to recognize it's going to be negative. Then we're going to do 4/5 times 3 over 1. We can't cross reduce, so it's just going to become 12/5. Now we're going to have that equal -4. So just like before, we're going to first get rid of our constant by undoing addition or subtraction. So to undo this subtraction, we're going to go ahead and add, since that's the inverse. So this is going to create 0 because they are additive inverse. That's exactly what we need. We have now -4/5 x equals, now I'm going to have to work this out. We have -4, I'm going to go ahead and put it over 1, plus 12/5. 5 is going to be our lowest common multiple, so we're going to have to go ahead and change this numerator by 5, leaving us with -20 plus, well, this one's going to stay the same, which then leaves us with -8/5. Now we're not quite done yet. We still need to get rid of our coefficient, and we typically get rid of that by either multiplying or dividing. Since this is -4/5 times x, we're going to do the inverse, which is to divide by a -4/5. Notice I do want to divide by a negative because I do want the signs to cancel out, and I want the numbers to cancel out. Because -4/5 divided by -4/5 is just 1. So now I'm going to be left with x equals. Notice the negatives cancel out here. Now, this is so important because I'm noticing a lot of students are accidentally rewriting this incorrectly. You want to go in order. It's always from left to right, top to bottom. So in this case, it's going to be top to bottom. So we're going to do 8/5 divided by 4/5. So we're going to go ahead and change that to 8/5 times the reciprocal, which is now 5/4. The 5s are going to cross cancel, and 8 and 4 have a 4 in common, which is going to turn this into a 2. Now, before I claim this is my final answer, of course we want to check our work. So let me go ahead and make some more room just in case we need it. We're going to have a -4/5 parentheses. Instead of x, we're going to put an open set of parentheses. Plus 3 equals -4. Now, of course, what goes inside the parentheses? Our answer of 2. So we're going to have to go ahead and simplify what's inside the parentheses here. 2 plus 3 is 5. Now, we're going to go ahead and simplify this. I'm going to go ahead and put it over 1 so you can see these 5s cross cancel, which just leaves us with -4 equals -4. So it does check out. So I can confidently say that the solution to this equation is indeed x equals 2. Well, guess what? That actually concludes the lesson for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, until next time, bye.